Global Indian Network. Print, TV, events, podcasts. Find out more at globalindianseries.com.
So now it's coming to the point where when you had the odd racism that was thrown at you was go back to your home country.
Yeah.
Basically, the UK government is saying go back to your home country. And when you're saying to them, my home country is here, I was born and bred here. So that's the kind of feeling that it has for me.
Welcome to the Global Indian Podcast, home to the greatest conversations and the official platform for people of Indian origin. Yes, let's face it, we are everywhere. My name's Rajan Nazar, I'm the proud Chief Explorer for the Global Indian Podcast. Now, you know, every week we plunge into the human experience behind our notions of identity, take a second look at the countries we now call home, and tackle the big conversations. Well, this week I'm going to stay in the United Kingdom, especially because of a new law that's been passed. It's the Nationality and Borders Bill, which will inevitably raise questions for many in the UK. For some, it creates a hierarchy of citizenship, and for others, it belittles the very foundation of identity. So the key issue is, what does it mean to be British? And should we be worried about freedom of speech, thought, and equally our moral outrage? Well, today I travelled to Scotland to meet with Gurpreet Singh Johal, an immigration lawyer and family lead campaigner for his brother Jagtar Singh Johal, a British national who's been held in prison, subjected to torture, and all without charge for the last 4 years in India. We discuss the impact of the bill, how it affects our perception of Britishness, and importantly, what more we need to consider. Elements of this podcast can be disturbing for some listeners, so listener discretion is advised. As always, I'd like to say a dear thank you to all our listeners and our supporters out there, many of which you hear from soon. And if you too would like to be part of our 50 Shades of Brown conversations, well, it couldn't be easier. Simply go to the website, which is www.globalindianseries.com. There you can see this podcast, an entire repertoire of discussions so far. Join the movement. I really hope you enjoyed this session.
Hi, my name is Divya and I'm co-founder of the Global Indian Podcast. Before you get to today's show, I've got a quick favour to ask. If you've been enjoying our conversations, I'd love if you could take just 1 minute to leave us a review on the platform that you're listening to us on and share our work to friends and family. It helps us out a lot. Word of mouth is the primary way that we grow. Thanks for your continued support.
Hi, my name is Nestor Alfred, CEO of St. Lucia's Citizenship by Investment. Think freedom. What comes to mind? Freedom to explore, to travel to any destination for work or play. Or is it freedom of expression? Being surrounded by the globally minded, those who care for society and environment. Every year, people from around the world apply for St. Lucian citizenship because they realize that real freedom is based on choice. Discover more about St. Lucian citizenship and how it's helping global Indians achieve more.
Hello, my name is Daniel Trasa and I'm Dean of Nova School of Business and Economics in Carcavelos, Portugal, one of Europe's leading business schools. I'm proud to be of Indian origin, and I invite you to discover these podcasts, which will look to redefine the impact that Indians and their descendants are doing all over the world. In behalf of Nova School of Business and Economics, I wish you a great 2021.
My name is Chitra Stern, and I am a proud Global Indian Ambassador and CEO of Martinal Resorts and Martinal Residences. We pride ourselves on the journeys that define a community, and our developments bring people together. Did you know that over 70,000 people just like us call Portugal home? The Global Indian journey has brought people together in a meaningful way, and on behalf of all of us at Martinal, we want to thank you for joining us in these remarkable conversations. We look forward to seeing you here in Lisbon post-COVID. Have a great day.
And just move. Get up and just move. Get up and just move. Get up and just move.
Conversation right in here is a rather important one for you as both a professional, but also through what your family's been through on a personal capacity. But before we talk about the new laws in the UK, and having a perspectives from the South Asian side. Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
So my name is Gurpreet Singh Johal, and I'm a solicitor practicing in immigration and asylum law for the past 7 years. I'm a father of 2 children. My wife is from India, and I'm born and bred in the United Kingdom. In fact, I was born in Birmingham and brought up in Scotland from 3 days old. So I consider myself to be Scottish more than English. No offense, but it's just that's where I've been brought up from 3 days old.
Well, I'm going to class you as a fellow Brummie, so you're not getting away from that one. So as a lawyer, the biggest news hitting at the UK is obviously this new changes in the law with the immigration bill. Why don't you run us through a bit about that and your perspectives of how it impacts identity as a whole?
So in respect of, I have a little bit more of a background when it comes to the nationality bill, because as an immigration and asylum solicitor, we will often help people that have came to the UK initially. They then get granted leave to remain, and once they're qualified for indefinite leave to remain, after that, after 1 year, if you're not a spouse of a British national, then you can acquire nationality citizenship after 12 months of acquiring indefinite leave to remain. And if you are married to a British national, then you can acquire a nationality stroke citizenship after as soon as you get your indefinite leave to remain. So I've often helped people. So the difference of it for me is understanding, which I have more of a knowledge than your standard person, because a lot of Caucasian British nationals do not have to experience this. It's normally from non-EA nationals, India, Pakistan, Bangladeshi, don't get me wrong, America, Canada as well, that experience this. But normally you only get into this once you're in a situation where you need to deal with the immigration. Otherwise, you're none the wiser. So what would happen is that Home Office does various checks before they grant you citizenship. It's not a straightforward process. You've got to meet the good good character requirement. You've got to meet that you've got the residence requirement within the UK before they grant it. Furthermore, recently, what we've seen in various applications that we've made is it's taken over years, over a year in order for citizenship to be granted. And when there's delays, what the Home Office will say is that we have to do extensive checks before we grant citizenship, because this is a procedure in which we are basically accepting your application in order for you to get citizenship. And after that, you have to then take oath to Her Majesty's in order to get your citizenship certificate. So I have that kind of background in respect of how citizenship works itself. How does it impact is that people have already went through thorough checks for citizenship in order for it to be granted. It's not as if the Home Office just grant the citizenship overnight and say, yes, you're going to get it. There's no fast track to it. You have to go through the process and the procedure before you get citizenship. So in essence, if something has been missed out or whatnot, it would have been picked up at that time. And there has been that your citizenship can be revoked, and this was there in law previously. That's only when it comes to serious offences, as opposed to the way this current bill is coming in, which is too vague. It's open for anyone to use to the way they want. And that's why a lot of people are concerned in respect of Clause 9 of the citizenship, the nationality bill that's coming through, because they don't need to give you notification and they can strip you of your citizenship. So that's why it's raised a big concern. But also at the same time, it's raised a concern for people like myself. I was born and bred in the UK. My father came to the UK and he had status. My father now has British nationality because he acquired a citizenship after he had met all the requirements. My mother was an Indian national. She passed away, but her citizenship was Indian and she had not acquired citizenship in the UK. So the impact of it is that my father no longer has Indian nationality, because as an Indian national, you cannot have dual nationality. You need to withdraw your Indian nationality. my mother is no longer alive. So how does that impact? Because the way the fear is now that your citizenship can be taken off you and you could be forced to take your parents. If your mother is no longer alive, how do you acquire or where do you go? So that's a concern in itself. I've always thought of myself to be a British stroke Scottish national because I'm born and bred here. I'm brought up here. Yes, I have roots to Punjab because that's where my family were brought up. That's where they were born. That's where our forefathers are from, and that's the land of the Gurus. And we need to have that impact with our roots. We cannot forget those. So how does it feel when this came in? As a human rights activist, as Preeti Patel would call it, I feel that with the bill, you become more vulnerable because it can target human rights activists, it can target anybody that raises voices against oppression. And this is, as I see, this is what we do. We are there to raise our voice against injustices and not let it, don't watch it happen, basically. So that's why it's concerning in respect of that for me as a British born and bred national in the UK. Like, the other impact of it is my younger brother, Jagtar Singh Johal, has been arbitrarily detained in India for over 1,500 days without formal charges, and I've been advocating for that. So whilst advocating for it, I'm advocating against the Indian government and the UK government because Jagtar is a British born and bred national, and the UK government should be doing more for him. So the Indian state have labelled terror charges against my brother, which means the likelihood is of me who's advocating for my younger brother as innocence, that India are not going to let me back into that country anyway. And even if I did go to India, I'd most likely be detained, given my activities over the last 4 years of advocating and being the lead campaigner for the Free Jaggi Now campaign. So that leaves a bit more vulnerability in respect of how the clause impacts people like myself. And I'm speaking as a professional, and it has an impact on me. But there's many people that may not be in the professional field, and now they're worried because many, many years ago, our parents or grandparents used to say, my example would be my mother. She never applied for a British passport, and you always kept an Indian passport. And the reason being, because Asian parents have always been stingy, and when it comes to a visa, it's easier to get a visa when one of your parents or your spouse is of Indian nationality. There's less issues of getting the visa, or you've seen that people want to apply for OCIs, etc. Not that I have got one of those, but when they want to apply, it makes it easier to get a visa. If you want a longer term visa instead of 6 months, or if you want a 2-year or a 5-year visa, if you've got a parent of that nationality, it helps get that.
I think there's one part that I just want to dive into a bit more. Your brother's been held on terror charges, but you're saying, and clearly, that there's actually no evidence to support anything of that whatsoever.
So Rajan, and clarity is my brother's been arbitrarily detained on allegations of terror. He has not had those allegations libeled against him, which is really important because the Indian state keeps saying that we've charged him. They haven't. At 4 years on, he is still to be formally charged on the allegations made against him by the senior authority in India, which is the NIA. For 4 years, they've prolonged matters and they've not charged him. It's coming to the stage. For the last 2 years, we've been fighting in respect of the framing of charges, because there was one case which Jagtar was in. When it came to the framing of charges, the judge discharged him of the case and threw the whole case apart, which meant whilst the Indian state was confirming that we've got charges against him, when it came to arguing, so the Punjab police put their case in front of the court, we defended it and we were successful. So Jagtar was discharged. For the last 2 years, we've been wanting those arguments to be held, but the Indians have kept moving a date, asking for adjournment after adjournment, not giving us the relevant documents. We're at that stage we've been at that stage since November 2018. If the judge hears the arguments, the judge has then got to decide whether any charges will be labelled against Jagtar or not. If not, he's got to discharge him. And if he's discharged, he walks away from that case.
And this is where the fragility is, isn't it? Because somebody can put up a trumped-up charge, not have to prove it, and now all of a sudden you are claimed to be a terrorist or political threat, and therefore under this section, you as an activist are then said, well, actually you are causing dispute between the foreign relations of a government and us. How does it impact you? How does it impact your identity? Do you feel more British now? Do you feel less British? Do you feel accepted? Do you feel wanted? What's going through your head at this moment in time?
So there's two things to it. So in terms of the UAPA, which is quite important because India just libels that against you. Any activist, you've seen Greta Thunberg, who was libeled against causing terror against the Indian state. You've seen Rihanna was also the same under the farmers' protest. And you've seen many activists under the farmers' protest that have also been accused under this. So this is quite scary in terms of how India try and move you away. So they basically try and get people to not to back you by saying terror, because you can understand when someone says terrorism or terror charges, people say, look, I'm not going to go near him. I'm going to go behind. I'm not going to go in front of this or defend it. So it becomes a bit concerning. In terms of the UK, the issue has been Jagtar's going to be a thorn in both sides. Each time that Jagtar, the UK officials meet the Indian officials, they have to raise Jagtar's case. 4 years on, British national has not been formally charged on the allegations made against him. He's not had a trial. He's not had a fair trial. And there's a matter of an independent examination outstanding. So the reason I mentioned these things is because when you talked about the diplomatic relationships, it's clear that Jagtar is ruining, to one extent, what one may say, especially global Britain, the diplomatic relationships between India and the UK. But this is another concern, because this could be another reason of why my nationality could be stripped off me, because Gurpreet Singh Johal is raising his brother's case and he's ruining diplomatic relationships between India and the UK when we want this global Britain. So how do I feel? As a professional, I feel that we will challenge this. As an immigration solicitor, there will be challenges to this, and there'll be somebody, some court that will stop it eventually. But we shouldn't.
What's the human feeling for you? What does it mean to be British to you then at this moment in time? Because I suppose there's this social contract that we make. We are awarded a citizenship, we have a citizenship, and we believe that that protects us, especially in international markets. If something were to happen, we look at the UK government treating us with that fear or favour. But in one sense of the law, but the other sense, when we are nationals abroad, to give us that protection is warranted, because that is part of what it means to be British. But for you, I suppose it's a strange one, because it's not India and the UK, it's the governments at this moment in time of the United Kingdom and the government at this moment in time in India that are causing this slight ruckus of the affairs. Pushing that aside, how do you feel? What does identity now mean to you? What does it mean to be British for you?
I've been born and brought up in Scotland. There is racism that exists, but it's not in your face in it. So now it's coming to the point where when you had the odd racism that was thrown at you was go back to your home country. Yeah. Basically, the UK government is saying go back to your home country. And when you're saying to them, my home country is here, I was born and bred here. So that's the kind of feeling that it has for me as a British born and bred national in the UK. This is my country. And there is nowhere else I can go. India not taking you. You need a visa to get into India. Where else am I supposed to go? Because there's no other country that can be related. And how do you get back into that country which you've never actually physically lived in? So as a national that's born and bred here, I think it's despising of the way that the government, the way they've acted, the way they have been acting. And I personally, I'm looking at it as a human one side, but I need to look at it as a professional aspect of it, that there will be challenges to this and the government will get caught out. Most policies that this Tory government have brought in have ended up being unlawful. And that's through challenges. So I understand the question you asked me, but it makes it difficult being in the profession and being in this area of saying, well, we won't be able to challenge this. So right now, concerns are rising. The reason they're rising is, as a father, my two children were born and bred in Scotland. And so they could have their citizenship taken off them, their nationality taken off them. And their roots to India are through their mum, who has also acquired citizenship in the UK. So in essence, if I look at the immediate family of me, my wife, and two children, my wife has acquired citizenship after acquiring indefinite leave to remain. My children are born and bred in Scotland, and they've acquired nationality via myself. So the four of us could lose three of us that have not got the Indian nationality could lose that, whereas my wife has given up her Indian nationality, so she has some kind of root. But there's three on one side and one on this side. And then if we take it to the wider and we take it to my father, then my father's not got Indian nationality either, and my mother's no longer alive. So in terms of it, it's feeling to the stage that this government cannot continue to get away with what they're doing.
Yeah,
and people really need to wake up, Rajan. This is the thing, is policies get put in place, and then we think about it once they're put in. Bills are made, acts are made, then we think about this. And I'm going to give you another example, I hope you don't mind, which is July 2012, Theresa May was the Foreign Secretary at the time, and she brought in rule changes. If you were in the country if you made an application before the 9th of July 2012, you could have applied for indefinite leave to remain and been granted under the 14-year route. As soon as you went over that date, you then had to get further leave to remain under the 20-year route. The impact of that has been on people that have came to this country illegally, who left their houses at a younger age. So, and I'll give you an example of somebody I knew. I worked with a chef who had left his house just as his wife was pregnant. He'd got to a different country, and one time he got to the UK, his son was born. So he'd spent 14 years in the UK. He was close to getting his indefinite leave to remain. Just before it, his son at Diwali was walking to light a diva, and he was run over by a car. The father then didn't think twice. He's not seen his son grow up, has immediately left and went back to India. He's lost, so everything he'd worked for 14 years here, he's all gone. But not only is that gone, he's also lost his son. So the impact of it would have been, if his son hadn't passed away, he'd got indefinite leave to remain, he could then bring his family over and stay in the UK, and his family could come because his child was under 18. Now, when that rule changes to 20 years, now, even if you left your house when your child wasn't born, 20 years on, that child is now classed as an adult, even though that he is your child, especially in the Asian community. The impact of it is, then you're going to be separated from that child, because bringing adult dependence is next to impossible, especially a 20-year-old child.
Why do you think they did bring the rule in?
One was to make money. Second was to let less people come into the UK, and it really impacted people from the South Asian countries, because people were here hoping after 14 years they'll get indefinite leave to remain. And it wasn't just that, Rajan, they also, up until 2012, there was no Home Office fees for applications. After that, the Home Office fees have just been going up, up and up. So you could make a human rights claim previously and not have to pay Home Office fees, but they've went up. Currently, if you got married outside UK, EU, you want to bring your wife over, you're looking at £1,560 for immigration health charge, the Home Office fees. After 2.5 years, you've got to apply for another 2.5 year visa. after the 5 years are complete, you've got to pay nearly £2,500 for her indefinite leave to remain. So before you know it, you're paying nearly £10,000 to get her indefinite leave to remain in the UK. Then you've got your citizenship application to make. So the rules have really impacted, especially our community. And also there was a requirement of the 18,600 that was brought in. When I got married, I was fortunate at that time that even though I was a trainee solicitor, I was a student, can't even remember that back, but even as a trainee solicitor, I could not meet the financial requirement. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And it's when British people, like British white nationals, have to bring in their spouse over or their partner over, only then they realize how stringent these immigration laws are.
I suppose your question is saying that, if there's already a system in place that is so stringent, why are we now taking the next step? What is the real thing behind it? What's really interesting for the audience to know is that people will be thinking, actually, this law only applies if you're looking to do something wrong. If you're doing something wrong, if you've done something that is bad against the United Kingdom, then yep, if it's Shumaim and Begum, your citizenship should be stripped from you because obviously, evidently, you don't like Britain, type of thing. In your case, and what you're advocating is saying actually it's a lot deeper than that, because we're talking about the political currency between countries. It's those trading relations. Anything that happens that could affect those trading relations, they can then say that you are bringing the reputation in dispute. Therefore, now you are subject to us removing your citizenship. On the bigger picture, people may think, well, that doesn't have much of an impact. But when you look towards your personal case, you're not anti-Indian or an anti-Indian government. What you are is saying, my younger brother is over there. And therefore, I believe in the constitutional rights that come from the United Kingdom. And I believe that there's a legal system in India. Well, why don't we let the courts decide and therefore let that prove itself? But the problem with that is that you're in the situation you're in. Your brother so just to give the audience a bit of a background, he was arrested because he had a website. Is that correct? Or am I getting it wrong?
Yeah, so I would go a step back, and terminology is really crucial here.
Sure.
I would say my brother was abducted on the 4th of November 2017. Then he was taken to an unknown location for 10 days and he didn't have any access to the outside world. So the reason being, so at the start, it was started with the Chief Minister of Punjab had said that he had masterminded these murders and they had all the evidence against him. This is the 7th of November 2017, they said this. To date, that evidence hasn't been produced. And what was Jagtar's crime, according to India, which is freedom of speech in the UK, he was documenting about the attack on Harmandir Sahib, also known as the Golden Temple, in 1984, which in the Sikh community itself, we believe that the people that were made shaheed were martyrs. They're not terrorists, which the Indian state claimed to have them as. We have gurdwaras and we deal with martyrs in respect of, we pay respect to them. So he was writing blogs in respect of that. He was documenting and researching in respect of hundreds and thousands of people that had lost their sons and daughters that didn't have pictures, and he was able to locate pictures of individuals, mothers that hadn't seen their children for so long, had a picture now that they didn't have before. So in respect of his research goes quite deep. But what the Indian state said was that he was radicalizing people as a result of it. And he was then, apparently he was radicalizing, and then apparently he was involved in various murders that took place. And the murders that took place whilst he was in the UK. The most recent murder that took place was whilst he was in India getting married at his pre-wedding party. And it was to this is how bad it is, that the Indian state claimed Jagtar went and killed this person, then was celebrating the murder, and that's the videos they tried to portray. But instead, what he was doing was he was celebrating his pre-wedding party, as we do before a wedding, when you have your family members are invited to it. So it started off, he's a mastermind. He is the financial dealer of this. Then he's a mastermind again. Then we have all the evidence. Then we don't have the evidence. And to date, nothing's been presented. So if one was to look at it in the Indians' way, they would say, well, he's liable against terror offences, which if they did take place, Jagtar was in the UK once all these things were taking place. So it's questionable of where the Indian state are going with this.
Wow. You can't even write that, can you?
No, that's what's happening now when people are listening, when people are looking 4 years on. So in December 2017, the popularity for Jagtar was going so high because the Prime Minister, Theresa May at the time, had spoke about him. Rory Stewart, the minister in charge, had said, if a British national has been subject to torture and mistreatment, the UK government will take extreme action. As soon as he said that, within days, he was removed from his post. That's the kind of impact India has in the United Kingdom. Theresa May raised the case. Theresa May raised the case with Prime Minister Modi in April 2018. And they're setting precedent, which was saying that this is the first time a Prime Minister has raised a consular case with another Prime Minister. And so then we had went to Geneva to do a protest in May 2018. The Indian government wanted to try and suppress the Free Jaggi Now campaign. On that day, they released the charge sheet of what they're accusing Jagtar of. So it was a 1,400-page charge sheet that was released. Straight away, off the back of it, they were trying to silence us. Redress, where a known NGO came out and said, don't quote me the words, but what they had said in essence was, until an independent examination has been conducted, any evidence obtained under torture and mistreatment is inadmissible. So that backfired straight on India straight away, because they thought they were suppressing the campaign, where you've got an NGO saying, until the allegations of torture are investigated, this cannot move forward. So again, that backfired on them. It's backfired to that extent. That charge sheet was presented to the court in May 2018. We're now in December 2021, and he's still not been charged on it. So when someone that doesn't know about Jagtar's case listens and thinks, 4 years on, he's still not been charged, what do they have? Because surely if the Indian state had something, they would charge him.
And then it also means, what does this new law mean in terms of how it impacts people like you? Like this is, you've been living this for the last 4 years, Gurpreet. It's, you're a lawyer, absolutely. You're there in Scotland. You're a brother, you're a human being, and you're going through what our classes is absolutely unsurmountable amounts of mental anguish. Because now, at any moment, you're absolutely right. Your passport can be pulled from me. Does it stop people from actually wanting to stand up for those human rights abuses happening externally, in your opinion?
So see, in terms of activism, those that are going to be activists are always going to continue. They're not going to let this threat stop it, because there have been other ways that the Indian government has had that influence within the UK to try and stop the activism. And the reason I'm going to mention this is, in September 2018, 5 individuals who were vocal, very vocal within the Free Jaggi Now campaign, had their houses raided. When the houses were raided, there was Indian police with the UK police counter-terrorism unit that attended the houses. They weren't looking for anything that was related to the UK. They were looking at information that's banned in India. That's how concerning it was at that point. And they were trying to find evidence against Jagtar within the UK, to this extent that the following day after that raid took place, the Indian papers had issued the names of the 5 individuals whose houses had been raided. Not the UK. Obviously, they've got this information, and India has put that into their national newspapers. Another raid has taken place which was the West Midlands 3, called the extradition case. And that was 3 individuals that were highlighting human rights, and the Indians wanted extradition of them. 3 British born and bred nationals who had been investigated by the police 10 years ago, and they were given an NFA, no further action, 10 years ago. 10 years later, India asked for their extradition. 3 British born and bred nationals with young families in the UK, professionals. India sought an extradition for them. September 2021. So in the morning, December, their houses raided, ransacked, and they've been threatened that their houses they were going to be deported, extradited to India. They had to put unbelievable amount of money as bail in order to be out, which meant that they could have either been 8 months in prison or 8 months at home. So they were out on bail with stringent conditions during that period. What happened after that was in September 2021, when the trial was about to start, the CPS withdrew the extradition before the trial was about to start. The judge looked at it and said, this should never have came here. That's how scary it is. They've tried to suppress activism for a long time. Another person, Sikh Youth UK, have been very vocal in Jagtar's campaign, social media-wise. They've tried to put charges on Sikh Youth UK. Actually, they have in their ongoing with Sikh Youth UK and another member of a family of Sikh Youth UK. Even Jagtar's name comes in those, and Jagtar's not even been in the UK throughout this time. So it's coming to the way that they've tried to do a lot to suppress activism in the UK. The UK have also did it. And this is why the police were banned of entering the Gurdwaras. And that was a counter challenge to the police of them stopping
What is your, because I know we can go down that route and it's an important discussion. And the question is, what is your identity? Because evidently Britain means something to you, but do you mean anything to Britain now or to Scotland? And India meant something to your family, but evidently having a look at what you guys have been through, I'm guessing it must be very difficult for you to think of yourself as being part of any culture at this moment in time. Like, where do you fit in, Gurpreet?
At this precise moment in time, I don't know exactly where we are, because if this bill was passed by the House of Lords, then I could be stripped of my nationality tomorrow and I'll, in essence, be stateless.
Are you worried? Does it scare you?
To be honest, if I wasn't a professional in this field, yes. But given it is, I'll challenge, because this is what we do as professionals itself. So it is scary for the mass. We've seen that 6 million people would be affected, and they're from the Black and Asian ethnic minorities. So it is scary. It's scary. 500,000 of them would be of Indian origin. Again, it directly impacts in my own community itself. And then it comes down to Pakistani communities, etc. So it is scary. Identity-wise, I would still class myself as British. I don't think anyone could take that away from me. I've complied with the rules, the regulations within the United Kingdom. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I pay my taxes. I've got an education in here, and I fully 110% gave back to the UK government. So I'm not sitting here being a burden on the UK government. So them taking my nationality away would be something I would be fully looking to challenge.
Well, see, it's strange for me, because when I think of what does it mean to be British, and like with a lot of different places out there, is that intellectual curiosity, that freedom to question, to look at the world and say, well, what is fairness? What is equality? And so that to me establishes this British values. And so the right to protest is very much part of who we are as people, whether it is being people that are Sikh or being Punjabi, or if it's being British, is the right to say, what is the very fabric of how society works and what is fair for all. The moment that then is being challenged because of a political play, that gets slightly scary, because what happens next? Is it the case that we then say we do not agree with how another nation is dealing with their carbon? with their climatic change requirements, but that can bring up the government in dispute. So now we could actually be stripped. So in other words, a deeper question is, does the government actually now own our identity? Are they trying to step into that place? And so that social contract of ours is saying we'll be obedient. How far do you go to becoming obedient until you forget what true freedom is?
But Rajan, the thing on this is that the clause is so vague that you don't know what you need to do. And we've seen members of parliament saying it, that it could be a traffic offence. It could be a drink driving offence. It could be something that one claims as a serious offence when it's not a serious offence. I think that's where the issue is too vague. I was on another call a few days ago, and it was mentioned that right now it's a Tory government. If there was another UKIP government or someone to come forward, then they would use that and utilize those laws in such a way that would become difficult for anyone that's not white to stay in this country. And one thing you got to realize is all of us in this in the UK give a different flavour to the UK. In Scotland itself, Indian takeaways, Indian restaurants are very popular. It used to be a fish and chips every Friday night, but now it's an Indian takeaway or an Indian curry, especially in Scotland. It's just the way it's been. And the reason I'm reflecting to Scotland itself is because I've worked in that industry and I've seen what the impact of Friday, Saturdays for the restaurant trades, the takeaways is, because people want that, because they've worked all week, they've looked to that. So all of a sudden, what some of the people, what I would personally say as a human being is what they don't realize. If everybody was to pack up of that are not white in colour and leave the UK, what does the UK have?
Yeah,
we've seen it with Brexit. We've seen it when people complained that they're taking the jobs away, and now those same jobs are not getting filled because those people are not there.
Yeah,
I've seen people that have left the country that have been bombarded with various things in the UK, and they're thinking, you know what, to hell with this, I'm going back to my country and the European countries, and those same people are being asked to come back to the UK to help them out.
yeah.
So I think the whole infrastructure aspect of it is going to collapse if the way they keep going the way they are.
I suppose people could ask and say, well, the people that are actually passing these laws are from immigrant households. The people, in other words, of Asian descent, of Asian heritage. So then if they can pass it, and I know I'm being facetious here, but if they can pass it and they're part of the community, so they would know surely what the community is thinking. And if they think it's fine to pass that litmus test, then surely nobody should complain.
Come on.
You get what the question is, though, because it's, are we saying that diversity in Parliament in the UK, maybe on the visuals of diversity, but mentally, in terms of the emotions and the aptitude needed to run government, there actually isn't the diversity needed to portray modern day Britain?
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to, isn't it?
So let's put it into a different context. You're a white man. You've been charged with racism. You've instructed a lawyer, and you've instructed a white solicitor. I work for that company. Who is your boss going to send? Who is my boss going to send to represent you? Is going to be the brown man to represent the racist in this example, because it's going to look, how can you be racist if that person of color is the one that's representing?
Yeah, it's like,
so
I can't be racist, my neighbor's black type of syndrome, isn't it? But then you got Boris Johnson, whose family originates from Turkey.
Yeah. So he was, I believe he was born in America, so he could lose his nationality, citizenship as a result of it. So it's why a lot of immigration and human rights activists have really jumped on this, and a lot of people from the South Asian communities, is because of the long-term effect of it.
Yeah.
It may not seem, and it may seem easy to say, this is all about serious criminals. But then justify exactly what you're going to do and what instances this applies to. See, because I done my dissertation in immigration law, and what I've seen is that they make all these mistakes, then they've got to rectify them. I was involved in the deport first, appeal later, which meant the Home Office would refuse your application and say, leave the country and appeal, which then ended up being found out to be unlawful. You can't do that due to the various issues that arise around it and how it works out in respect of it. The certification of European nationals under criminal matters ended up having impacts to it as well, which was found out to be unlawful. So I genuinely believe, and I'm hopeful, that the House of Lords do not pass the bill and it is thrown back. There are amendments made in, but this is where it's got to go down to the pressure, because what we've realised is that this government hasn't given a damn. We've seen it with COVID. We've seen how things are going on. They don't give a damn. It's one rule for us and it's another rule for them. So people think, oh, who cares? I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there was the adverts that used to come out in which, did you vote? No. Well, you can't talk about it. Did you vote? So it's not about the voting. It's about finding your members of parliament accountable for what they've done. And what we should be doing is every MP that did vote for it, we should be finding them accountable. So if your MP in your area did so, you should be doing so. We've seen recently, there was a Conservative MP and the Muslim community have stood up and said, you won't be getting a seat here again. We won't be voting you, given what you've done. So what we need to do is find them accountable and put the pressure on, because this clause 9 needs to be removed and it needs to be seriously amended.
It seems to me that you believe in Britain, and more so you believe in the values of what Britishness is. So therefore it's about changing it from within and your perspective. And likewise, I think it's the same thing, not to put words in your mouth, but the same way that you look towards India, saying, well, if India is there as a democratic nation, therefore the laws have to be justly upheld. They can't be changed frivolously. There's a time that politics has to end and governments and countries need to do what's good for each other. If people want to find out more about the work that you do in particular, how can they find out?
So most of my thing has been campaigning about for Jagtar. So if you follow the social media, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or Free Jaggi Now, so that's just Free JAGGI Now, and you'll be able to get more information on what we're doing. And because this could be you. Today it's Jagtar, tomorrow it could be you. British nationals are not protected abroad, and we need to be doing more to calling them out, because if we are going to be a global Britain, then we need to protect our citizens, our nationals, wherever they are, and we can't just leave them in limbo. So you can follow me on that, or you can find me on Twitter, GSJohal85. But Rajan, it's been appreciated for you giving me this opportunity to speak and letting the audience know about Jagtar and how it ties in with the nationality bill, etc. So it's been, I can only thank you for having me.
Well, there you have it. That is a very interesting discussion to be had. I suppose when we have a look at the realms of political will and we look at how legal changes are being made, it makes us really question how it tinkers with the very fabric of a national identity. Are national identities ultimately a myth? Is it something that does exist? Is it regional voices that need to be heard more so? It is a fascinating glimpse into what human behavior is. If you'd like to find out more about the work that Gurpreet's been doing, I suggest that you follow him on Twitter. His Twitter feed is as follows. It is GSJohal85. And if you'd like to continue your journey across the globe on the 50 Shades of Brown that is us, well, couldn't be easier. Simply register on our website, which is globalindianseries.com. There you can subscribe to the newsletter and read exciting articles every single week. Yes, we are growing, and with your help, we will make this the decade of the Global Indian. Until next week, stay well.